Right, good day everyone. Welcome to the session of Planning Around the World. It is really a privilege to offer this overview of the planning system or spatial planning and land use management in South Africa. My name is Dr. Rouve Bingle and I am a lecturer at the University of Cape Town. So I will present this talk and hopefully guide you along the way. And we will try and get a better understanding of the components, the context, the nuances, but also the realities of planning in my country. The word that best encapsulates the system for me is probably complexity, and thus the title of this presentation. So as per introduction, it can be stated that planning is a discipline that has inflicted both harm and hope upon its people. And this is much like planning challenges in many other global South nations. For our international audience, South Africa is a very diverse country and grapples with legacies of inequality that resonate with a global audience. Then in this session, we will navigate South African planning and its contested landscape together. And we need to remember that issues of space and place affect every one of its citizens, and it usually does so quite unevenly. We will explore the planning system as well as unique urban structures that has been fragmented by the past, as well as the pervasive role of informality, currently the collapse of local municipalities and its services, and also question if conventional approaches suffice and if deeper collaboration with communities and civil societies is maybe essential at this stage. Then we will also embrace the urban-rural continuum, and also by doing so honor diverse approaches that is usually situated in local knowledge and solutions. As always, we approach this with a level of sensitivity, and we do this by honoring diverse experiences and also talk without presuming to resolve all complexities. In this hour and a half, it can be said that we really or barely scratched the surface, but I hope that through learning and exposing of facts, you will get a greater insight into the shared planning vision and its endeavours to puncture silos and unlocking possibilities for a more equitable future in South Africa. A quick roadmap of what to expect in terms of the presentation overview. So overall, the objective is to provide a logical, high-level overview of South African planning, as well as its trajectory. We focus on the interplay of power, land, and society within the landscape. And we are aware that this is marked by complexity, various government challenges, and also a great amount of diversity. So you will see we will start with a short overview of the planning or of South African planning's essence, and then thereafter examine the timelines that have shaped the system up to now. Then we also touch on key legislation, and we continue with a deep dive into the three tiers of the planning system. Then central to this talk is the theme of continued redress and spatial transformation, and this is especially so amid rising urbanisation and population shifts, which has amplified the demand for a higher quality of life. Then we also grapple with unique urban structures of fragmentation, informality's dominance, especially in urban peripheries, and then also the collapse of services to the most vulnerable. We look at both the negatives and positives, or the successes and challenges in planning, and we do this while being very mindful of the many lenses that make this somewhat a controversial topic for discussion. Then finally, we look towards South Africa's planning future and hopefully come to some conclusions that will guide us towards a more creative vision for the next few decades, and hopefully foster hope and also lessons for the global planning community. So briefly a slide to situate the discussion geographically. The country is located at the tip of the African continent, And you'll see it's surrounded by neighboring countries in the north, and then also by the Atlantic and Indian Ocean. You will see the colorful South African flag, which represents the diversity and unity of our people. And then at the bottom of the slide, just some information on the internal boundaries or administrative boundaries in the country. We have 9 provinces altogether, and then within these 9 provinces, there is 257 municipalities. Then just for comparison, South Africa is approximately 5 times larger than the United Kingdom in terms of size. So setting the scene, let's briefly explore the essence of the South African planning system. It has really evolved dramatically, especially post-1994, and this has reshaped the nation's landscape, the built environment, and also its people. The system is complex and it can be described as adaptive. It weaves together tangible components like spatial plans, intangible processes like public participation, and then also many interconnected frameworks which offer clear boundaries, inputs, and outputs. The system is greatly influenced by the Spluma Act of 2013, and this drives equitable development through its 5 principles. I will just briefly name them as spatial justice, sustainability, efficiency, resilience, and good administration. For me, it is an optimistic system that is constantly evolving and also somewhat controversial as it needs to balance diverse stakeholders' needs. Public interest often clash with private developer goals, making planning a tightrope walk in South Africa. The system is also rooted in the British colonial tradition, but it has been greatly transformed by our democracy and especially the Constitution of 1996, which has put us on a path towards a more unified spatial vision. Then today, the system tackles a fragmented landscape of dual realities. There are instances of extreme hardship and also great advancement. And there are great many examples of urban sprawl, peri-urban informality, then issues in terms of access and displacement, instances of gentrification, especially in metropolitan cities such as Cape Town and Johannesburg. And then if we look towards the interior of the country, there are many instances of rural blight and depopulation. So the system strives for an equitable, sustainable future, and a large portion of this is done through addressing urbanization. Then from national visions and strategies to local plans, the aim is to deliver tangible outcomes. And this is essentially to attain a higher quality of life through things such as housing, infrastructure, and social services, and then also thriving local economies. This must be done through embracing the country's diversity and also juggling very complicated power dynamics. However, despite these many challenges and capacity gaps, it is still a forward-thinking system, and it really aims for a just South Africa through space. Right, you will see the presentation is interspersed with a selection of images, and this is to invite reaction, but also very succinctly summarize many of the main themes as it relates to the South African planning mission. Here, for instance, is an image by photographer John Miller, and it encapsulates South Africa's spatial inequality as seen in the city of Johannesburg. So this speaks to the legacy of apartheid, but also of severe contemporary developmental efficiencies. Usually, inequalities such as this manifest in stark disparities between, for instance, affluent suburban areas and then marginalized townships and rural landscapes. In short, it speaks of unevenly distributed resources and its access. Continuing with the overview on planning, as we've said, the system tackles complex challenges in its mission to create equitable futures, as we saw with spatial inequality. It tries to navigate sustainable development, rapid urbanisation, which is over 60% of the population, climate challenges, contested land ownership, socio-economic disparities, political dynamics, and then also social service delivery gaps. So from national to local scales, it seeks for transformative solutions, a very important word, and it will be mentioned time and again, and this is to activate radical change. However, success is not yet realized in many communities, and this leads to great frustration. The system operates through three spheres of government, which is national, provincial, and local. And then national planning sets strategies and long-term goals, whereas the province sets regional strategies, and then it is translated into local actions through municipal plans. This creates a very decentralized approach and really empowers local decision making, which has distinct spatial consequences for communities, which can be both good and bad. However, as is the story in South Africa, capacity remains a hurdle, and struggling to meet the demands of a diverse nation is something that plagues many planning departments. The shortage impacts service delivery and equitable planning, and usually trickles down to the most vulnerable communities amongst us. So a look at South Africa planning is important. Why? Because it really offers a universal lesson for post-colonial contexts. It focuses on spatial justice, sustainability, and public participation, and is a vital case study for global planning discourse. The system is acutely aware of also the urban-rural continuum and its interdependence, and thus tries to address both urban sprawl and rural needs in a unified manner. So as a frame of reference, the logo for SAC Plan is displayed on this slide. The South African Council for Planners, or SACPlan, plays a pivotal role in the industry and in promoting the profession. So SACPlan was established under the Planning Professions Act of 2002 and serves as the statutory body regulating the planning profession, and it does so by registering planners, accrediting education programs such as at UCT, WITS, and UP, and also promoting continued professional development and enforcing ethical standards to ensure professional competence. We continue and move on to some critical demographic and economic data in the next few slides. And this is a means to situate the South African experience and provide a deeper understanding of its societal makeup and conditions. As is logical, this information is needed for analysis, planning, and then also informed evidence-based decision-making. So to ground our discussion, let's quickly look at South Africa's demographic tapestry. It's vibrant yet uneven, and it underscores the urgency and very important role that spatial planning can play. It's also similar to other conditions in emerging nations. So just briefly, the population is over 63 million, and this is projected to grow. It is a youthful nation with a median age around 28, 29 years of age. However, the youth bulge does heighten services demands and has the potential to burden the already stretched systems that we see in South Africa. Then urbanisation stands at approximately 68%. This translates into almost 43 million people in cities. And this is driven partly by rural to urban migration. For instance, Gauteng province alone sees massive inflows, as does the Western Cape. And this further exacerbates unique urban structures. For example, the fragmented landscapes that we see with sprawling informal settlements on its peripheries. Then the racial composition, 82% Black African, 8.5% coloured, 2.6% Indian Asian, and 7.2% white, mirrors historical heterogeneities. Then life expectancy is at 66.5, and it reflects some of the health gains that have been made in the last few decades. But we must also be aware of a 12.7% HIV prevalence, which is some of the highest in the world. Then there has been a change in fertility at 2.4 children per woman, and this signals a slow decreasing shift. All this data together has real implications for planning, and we can say that in the country, demographics perpetuate spatial divides. So in this context, planning must address uneven impacts, for instance, addressing rural depopulation and the disappearance of traditions, while also be cognizant of the immense urban influxes that is overwhelming infrastructure and services, and also recognizing that these come with diverse experiences. It also highlights the need for redress, and also what is very important is transforming challenges into opportunities for inclusive growth. This is, however, easier said than done. I would like to just finish this slide with a quote from Turok, which says, from 2018, which says that spatial organization of the economy and society really matters, and it is something to consider for all planners. Then South African society, as you can see here, is complex and diverse, and it contains a collection of cultures and heritages. And very interestingly, we have 12 official languages altogether. It is deeply shaped by its history, fostering a strong sense of activism, which is rooted in the struggle for justice and human rights. I can say without hesitation that the people of South Africa are extremely resilient. Turning to economics, South Africa unfortunately paints a very concerning picture and shows stark distortions that planning must confront with a level of sensitivity. So GDP growth was weak at around 1.3% early in 2025, and it is projected to reach slightly higher levels at 1.6% by year end. This is due to a variety of factors such as weak investor confidence, but also deteriorating infrastructure. The best known example is probably the fallout from Eskom and its electricity shortages. Then unemployment hovers at 33%. The youth rate is much higher at 60%, which is truly shocking and needs to be addressed. And this, in short, perpetuates cycles of inequality and contributes to the Gini coefficient of 0.63, which is the world's highest. Then poverty affects 63% of the population, and over 40% rely on social grants from SASSA. These figures from sources such as the World Bank really highlight the power imbalances that are at play in the country. For instance, the top 10% hold between 71 and 85% of wealth, whereas the bottom 50 just 4 to 7%. This, in short, gives opportunity for informality to thrive, and it is a means of survival for these communities. So planners must approach this unevenly felt reality. For instance, rural economies that are lagging and have been decimated, to urban hubs that have been that are in many instances thriving but very exclusionary, and this must be dealt with great care, and planners must draw on policies like the National Development Plan for their vision for redress and hope. Photo of a typical example of a micro-enterprise in South Africa, and it encapsulates informality. So in South Africa, informality manifests through unregulated settlements as well as economic activities, as we see from informal housing and street trading. This is largely driven by rapid urbanization, as well as historical inequalities, and it really challenges formal planning paradigms. As we've said, these are livelihood strategies and critical for many people as a means of survival, but they often operate outside of formal land use schemes, and this cannot be ignored and requires planners to integrate these activities into municipal integrated development plans as well as spatial development frameworks in order to realize equitable development. Now moving on to the critical discussion on the history of South Africa and how it has shaped planning. As a point of departure, we confront colonialism's enduring impact on South African land use, which started in 1652. This includes long periods of dispossession and the commodification of land for settlers, and this culminated in land, or only 7% of land eventually being allocated to Black South Africans via the 1913 Native Land Act. For the international audience, this echoes colonial examples elsewhere, such as in the Americas and also Asia. And as we said, colonialism started with the arrival of the Dutch East India Company and its creation of a supply station at the Cape of Good Hope, which is modern-day Cape Town. And what this timeline tells us is really a story of tension, contestation, and then also power that was wielded to exclude. And this ultimately created quite a heterogeneous experience. It is a sensitive narrative, and we must take great care with it. It is indigenous memories of eviction, which clashes with settler legacies and the unevenly shaping of today's landscape as well as built environment. Its foundation really set trajectories for inequality, which were carried over by the apartheid era. Then also, what is important to note is that land and its natural resources was a key driver, especially the discovery of diamonds and gold. These became tools of control and prosperity for a few, and it also shaped not just the formation of settlements, but also their development and location. It did so predominantly from a European perspective, and as we reflect, it is necessary to acknowledge also not just the lessons in resilience, but also the harm that was caused. It is uncomfortable, but planning's role was complicit, yet, as we argue, it still holds potential for hope and redress. I think in summary, what we can say is that this history reminds us that transformation in the South African context demands localism, creativity, the sharing of values, and also the bridging of divides. But before you is a few images that capture the colonial imprints on South Africa's landscape. These visuals, as you can see, early map of settlements, as well as colonial architecture and interaction, really reveal how British and Dutch shape ruled the spatial and social fabric of the country. So one can picture grid-like layouts of Cape Town's early streets, and also sprawling estates that were carved out by colonial settlers, often at the expense of indigenous communities. These images tell a story of control, especially where land was parceled to serve the interest of a few, and this set the stage for spatial inequities that really lingered into apartheid. Then moving on to the apartheid era, apartheid really amplified colonialism's distortions through the engineering of space as a weapon of division. And this period lasted from 1948 to 1994. So for clarity, apartheid was a government policy that enforced racial separation, similar to segregation in the United States, Jim Crow era, but just much more systemic. Space and place played a central role in realizing its aims, and the legislation that had great impact was the Group Areas Act of 1950, which not just segregated races, but displaced over 3.5 million communities. New areas such as the homelands were created. It is also called Bantustans. And these were pseudo-independent rural reserves where Black people were placed. This created South Africa's unique spatial structure of distortion and also the unequal socio-economic distribution of activities and people. What it also contributed to was the fostering of informality as a mode of survival, and many informal settlements emerge as a resilient yet vulnerable response on the outskirts of cities. These uneven impacts really linger in memory and is a controversial echo in the positionalities of today. Policies and laws from this era were not just cold in logic and ideology, but enduring, as we can still witness its lasting legacies when looking at townships such as Botshabelo in the Free State and Khayelitsha in the Western Cape. Old order planning during this time, just as a matter of interest, was bifurcated, and it served the minority on the one hand and its advancement, and tried to maintain the unjust status quo for the majority on the other hand. Its contribution to inefficient spatial patterns are undeniable and, again, very uncomfortable. And most importantly, its consequences are still felt today, and it is a fact that still needs ongoing critical engagement. So I can ask you to maybe just please pause for a moment and have a look at these powerful visuals. These are photographs of everyday life in South Africa's apartheid era. These images speak clearly and reveal the profound spatial and societal scars left by decades of systemic segregation. You'll see a map of the previously mentioned Bantustans, as well as protest, and then just images of everyday life and how people were separated based on race. Now onto a more positive era, which is the dawn of the 1994 democracy. It not just ignited hope, spatial transformation, but also dismantled apartheid's blueprint and its divided spatial logic. It really signaled the clarion call for redress and progress, and the new Constitution and Bill of Rights really formed the basis for the path forward and emphasize equitable access. It is really a model, or it has become a model for post-conflict nations internationally. We can see that early policies aimed at integration, but unfortunately implementation lagged due to many governance silos and also differing needs, as well as its sheer scope. It is often described as a period of initial optimism, which has since been tempered by realities in the years that followed. Government documents show this fact. Province such as Gauteng, for example, shows many progressive frameworks that were introduced in its aim to enhance unity, but uneven progress was still the output, unfortunately. Then we must also acknowledge different positionalities. It was a time of joy for some and also ongoing pain for others, and thus remained a contested transition for many. Also, planning very slowly transformed from being divided, technocratic and top-down heavy, to one that was more communicative, collaborative and decentralized. It was the introduction of participatory tools that set the stage for transformation amid many of these wicked problems. But these changes took years to realize, and in many ways is still ongoing. Very importantly, it's also a time where planning had to do some introspection and confront its role in the past. What was clear that it was a powerful, or is a powerful discipline, which needed to reinvent itself and realize its potential as one that is positive. Right, a pivotal moment in South Africa's history of democratic transition. These images really capture the spirit of 1994. Here you will see Nelson Mandela, our first democratically elected president, whose vision of unity reshaped our nation. Alongside him is a really iconic photograph of the 1994 elections and the long line of voters waiting to cast their votes. Now on to contemporary planning. It is, in short, a very dynamic framework which shapes both cities and rural landscapes. The system manages land use, spatial development, and growth across the urban-rural continuum. It is forward-looking, and it blends strict regulations with bold aspirations for a more equitable future. And as has been said, at its heart lies the South African Constitution, and it is also supported by the 2013 Spatial Planning and Land Use Management Act, or SPLUMA. And these laws and tools really help tackle apartheid's lingering spatial divides, but also promote sustainable development, environmental protection, and ensure that land use is inclusive and efficient. As we've said, it operates across national, provincial, and municipal levels, or local levels, and the system really thrives or tries to through cooperative governance and aligning diverse priorities into cohesive plans. Something that is very important is public participation, and this is where communities from all around the country, be it urban hubs to rural villages, engage with government and try to shape their future in an active way. Sometimes this is also more successful in certain parts of the country than in others. Yet, the system is contested with competing interests like economic growth and social justice sparking lively debates. And this is something that we must take cognizance of. So South Africa is not just diverse, but also its planning. And this shines through in the many examples. For instance, Cape Town's transit innovations, such as the MyCity, to rural land reforms in provinces such as Mpumalanga and Limpopo. It really reflects our nation's complex realities. And we can say that South African planning is a work in progress. So the following slide explains the legislative backbone of South Africa's democratic planning system, and it is designed to empower communities and reshape spatial inequities. At the top, you will see the Constitution, which we have already mentioned, and it enshrines access to land, housing, and a healthy environment. This sets the overall tone for inclusive planning. Then the Municipal Systems Act of 2000, which mandates the creation of integrated development plans and spatial development frameworks, and these must align with the municipal visions and communities' needs. Then also the National Environmental Management Act, or NEMA, which has seen many amendments, and this ensures that environmental sustainability is incorporated into planning. Then, as mentioned, SPLUMA, which is the cornerstone for the planning profession and drives equitable land use and tries to dismantle historical spatial legacies. Then also the National Development Plan sets a roadmap for 2030 and is greatly focused on the reduction of poverty and inequality. And this has been complemented by the 2016 Integrated Urban Development Framework, which puts focus and sharpens urban growth strategies in South African cities. And then at the bottom of the slide, you will see we mention political legislation such as LUPA from the Western Cape, and then also municipal bylaws, which gives local precision to planning's aims. So just in short, together these laws weave together and balance national visions with local voices. So having explored the historical roots and democratic aspirations shaping South Africa's spatial planning, we now turn to how this vision is brought to life. The slide marks a transition to our next session, which is the tiers of planning in South Africa. So first up, national planning. This tier sets the strategic tone and offers high-level policies, oversight and capacity building to shape a cohesive future for South Africa. It's driven by holistic long-term spatial logic, and it is rooted, as we've said, in the Constitution and SPLUMA, and also the National Development Plan. These frameworks guide us to redress, promote sustainable growth, and also ensures inclusive development. National planning thrives on coordination, both horizontally and vertically. Horizontally, departments such as National Treasury, Cooperative Governance, and Transport work together. And then vertically, national government aligns with provincial and municipal levels. Then SPLUMA's normative principles like equity and efficiency anchor the system, and it really ensures that land use decision cascades down in a hierarchy from a national vision to local action. Then something that is very important is the National Spatial Development Framework, or the NSDF. This was approved by Cabinet in 2002, and it is our spatial strategic cornerstone, which sets policies to guide spatial development. It's not just about plans, we know this, it's about action and building a unified, equitable South Africa through coordinated governance, spatial planning, and support for all of its tiers. In this slide is a graphic, and it just offers a snapshot of South Africa's planning ecosystem and where the National Spatial Development Framework fits in. You can see quite centrally, so it's hard. As we've said, it was approved in 2022. And is really a strategic compass which guides both national, provincial, and municipal planning in a unified fashion. We can picture it as a top tier in a very dynamic hierarchy. As we've said, it sets high-level policies that really cascade down, ensuring that land use aligns with goals of equity and ability. You'll then see below the NSDF is mention of the provincial spatial frameworks, and then below that, municipal spatial frameworks. And it again translates the overall higher level visions into local realities. All of this then culminates into specific land outcomes, which can be either positive or negative, and this is then fed back into the spatial planning process where it needs to be adjusted or maintained. So before you is an image of the National Spatial Development Framework, and it really illustrates South Africa's ideal national spatial pattern. It is said that it's not just a map, but a vision for South Africa's spatial future. Again, in short, it really celebrates the urban-rural continuum through connection. You can see urban hubs such as Johannesburg, Cape Town, and eThekwini is placed in thriving hinterlands, and then it also reaches out to what we hope are revitalized urban regions through infrastructure and socio-economic opportunities. So the continuum is knitted together for optimate output. The pattern envisions equitable growth, and especially marginalized areas gaining access to jobs, housing, green spaces, and also undoing the spatiality of history. Then this image captures South Africa's ambition. To be honest, it is cohesive, and it is a spatial framework that really transforms diverse needs and landscapes into one unified opportunity. Let's zoom into the provincial tier, which is a critical yet sometimes overlooked part of the system. So as part of government structure, provinces translate national priorities into tailored regional strategies. Provincial departments that have a hand in provincial planning include the Cooperative Governance and Traditional Affairs Department, or Provincial Kokta. And it helps in indirectly shaping land use through policies that bridge urban cores, informal settlements, and also rural areas. This urban-rural continuum ensures no region is left behind, and that there is some uniformity in the approach, though there is ongoing critiques of inconsistency between provinces in terms of resources, finances, and technical ability. In terms of laws, the Western Cape, Gauteng, KwaZulu-Natal, and Northern Cape have led in enacting province-specific laws, while others are still transitioning or lagging behind. It is important to note that provinces are diverse, all 9 of them, and this amplifies the focus on local urban-rural continuums. For instance, Gauteng, compared to the Eastern Cape, vary greatly, and it calls for the crafting of unique strategies which reflect local needs. Then we will look at the Western Cape's Spatial Development Framework, which is led by the Department of Environmental Affairs and Developmental Planning. And it basically offers a 10 to 20-year vision for the Western Cape's sustainable growth. We say this by, again, noting the challenges that persist. Provincial planning is in many ways aspirational, but there is limited enforcement and also complex coordination challenges across the region. It is still a vital tier, and as we've said, it really helps to interpret national goals into provincial needs. Let's stop here briefly and explore the provincial example. We look at the Western Cape Province and its Provincial Spatial Development Framework, or PSDF, as a policy document for South African provincial planning. As we've said, it is governed by the list of legislation that we've previously mentioned, but then also province-specific legislation such as the Western Cape Land Use Planning Act, or LUPA. The PSDF provides spatial expression to provincial plans and also bridges the National Spatial Development Framework and municipal plans below it to create sustainable regions. So the Western Cape PS was launched in 2014, and it really guides regional development by aligning with Spluma's principles. It also tackles apartheid-era inequalities and promotes or tries to promote inclusive growth. Very importantly, it endeavours to find a balance in supporting economic hubs, such as in the Cape Winelands, for instance, and the boosting of the space economy, but also ensuring that environmental and social protection is taken into consideration. For example, the Western Cape province is known for the Cape Floral Kingdom, and it's very, very rich biodiversity, and it is necessary for planners to be ecologically aware in this sense. Then also, if you look at the image, the key features of this PSDF is the growth areas, such as the Greater Cape Metro, and then the connectivity corridors between Cape Town and Stellenbosch, which is created to manage the growing urbanized population. As we've said, the PSDF really guides individual municipal SDFs and IDPs, as well as land use schemes, and must ensure for cohesive planning and do so through public participation. However, despite the PSDF's strong policy framework, success really depends on better resources and monitoring. There's also misalignment and power struggles between provincial oversight and municipal autonomy. Then we must also be aware that we have, within the Western Cape, we have less resource regions such as the Central Karoo, and if you compare it to an advanced municipality such as the Cape Metro, the differences become very clear. We now arrive at the municipal tier, which is South Africa's local heartbeat of planning in terms of direct impact on land use decisions, development, service delivery, and also community needs. As the third sphere of government in South Africa, South African municipalities, and I'd like to just briefly name or mention that there are 8 metropolitans, such as Cape Town, 43 district municipalities such as Sedibeng, and then 205 local municipalities such as Mafube, really turn national provincial visions into tangible action. Again, it's guided by SPLUMA, but also supported through the Municipal Systems Act, as well as municipal specific bylaws for each municipality. And they craft regulations for communities and also affect daily life, such as through building codes, waste management, and more, and also plans for land use, infrastructure, and services. So tools like the Municipal Spatial Development Framework, or MSDFs, such as found in Cape Town Metropolitan, for example, are embedded within the integrated development plans and shape not just the local landscape, but its outcomes. So land use, then further on, we also once again say that challenges persist. There are deep disparities between different municipalities. Some are very understaffed in their planning departments, and there are also high vacancy rates that hinder planning progress. That being said, grassroots processes forge ahead, and public participation drives many decisions. This is usually the tier where planning becomes real and directly shaping communities and lives across South Africa's diverse spectrum, which include metropolitan cities, secondary cities, edge cities, informal townships, to very deep rural villages and towns. Also, something that is special about municipal planning is the presence of municipal planning tribunals, or MPTs. They play a key role in adjudicating development applications like rezoning, and they do so to align with SPLUMA principles. These grassroots processes involved active engagement and ensuring diverse voices shaping outcomes. So, as we've said, municipal planning produces tangible land use outcomes such as zoned areas, housing, infrastructure, and this directly affects society, individuals, and these outcomes can be both positive or negative. Now you will see an example of two different municipal spatial development frameworks. On the left, you have an example of Cape Town Metro, and then to the right, there is an MSDF from a local municipality called Muhokare in the Free State province. And this is just to show the differences between a highly urbanized and deeply rural example, and where both still require MSDF. So Cape Town's MSDF tackles urbanization. It prioritizes compact growth, economic hubs and projects, and in contrast, Muhokare's SDF addresses deep rural needs, focusing on agricultural land use, in many instances, very basic service delivery, and then also small-scale economic nodes like the town of Sastron. It also struggles with many discrepancies and also much more limited resources. However, both SDFs involve grassroots participation and the creation of an IDP, and these help to link them to budgets and land use schemes, land use management systems, also enforce zoning, producing tangible outcomes like housing and infrastructure. Despite challenges, these efforts address South Africa's diverse needs, and it also calls for the strengthening of planner capacity in their aim for success. So over 30 years, various planning positives have been attained in the country. This slide very briefly celebrates the transformative strides of South African planning system and gives credit where credit is due. As we've mentioned a number of times, South African planning has many progressive tools such as the IDP and the SDF, and this helps to guide towards equitable land use across the urban and rural spectrum. We've seen many spatial transformation gains with specific planning projects such as the Johannesburg Corridors of Freedom, where the use of mixed-use zones bridge apartheid-era divides, improve housing as well as mobility, and knit communities together. Then there has also been development in housing achievements, and this has reshaped lives in cities and tries for the greater enjoyment of better access and the tackling of informalities challenges. Then policy advancements must also be celebrated. For instance, the Integrated Urban Development Framework, which aligns with the NDP of 2030, fostering resilience, inclusive settlements, and the reduction of poverty, something that has been mentioned multiple times is a focus on community engagement, which is thriving, where the leveraging of local knowledge for the solutions through robust public participation takes place. Then a focus on the local is also very advantageous. It celebrates cultural richness and also helps to make sense of diverse perspectives. And then policies connect, such local policies also help to connect urban cores, peri-urban zones and rural areas in creating a cohesive continuum. And as we've said previously, while challenges remain, these successes have been rooted in collaboration and innovation, and really showcase that South African planning is trying and that it is building towards a vibrant and equitable future. This image captures South African strides as well as shortcomings in public housing delivery. It has been transforming lives across the urban-rural landscape, but has also been faced with continuous challenges, backlogs, and deficits. Housing delivery in South Africa is driven by the constitutional mandate, with SPLUMA and municipal plans like the IDPs and SDFs guiding equitable land allocation. Local government still has significant housing roles and responsibilities, and is supported by national funding and partnerships that prioritize housing to address entrenched spatial divides and also the pervasive nature of informality. So community participation in this regard is also critical, and it ensures that projects reflect local needs and delivering homes despite these persistent challenges that we speak of. So, as we celebrate South Africa's planning achievement, this slide confronts the persistent challenges that test our resolve. There are quite a few, but chronic funding shortages really limit infrastructure and housing delivery across the continuum. It stalls efforts of redress and deep spatial inequalities. This underfunding leaves marginalized communities at risk, especially in informal settlements and also rural areas. And in short, it creates a struggle for them to access basic services and also perpetuate historical divides. Then institutional incapacity compounds the issue. Many municipalities are stretched thin, and this is made worse by high vacancy rates and weak capacity, which then translate into the failure to deliver essentials such as water, sanitation, and waste removal. Worse still, and something that cannot be ignored, is systemic corruption and mismanagement, which erode public trust and also diverts resources from critical planning and service provision, and slows down the transformation as envisioned by SPLUMA. Then persistent inequality remains a stark reality, with wealth and opportunities still unevenly distributed. Then municipal collapse is something that plagues most of South Africa. There are 152 municipalities that are bankrupt and 29% at risk. And this disrupts infrastructure access and further compounds complex and wicked as well as interconnected challenges. These very often defy conventional planning approaches as developed in the global north and ask for solutions that are better tailored to the needs of the South African context. So although the South African situation is complex, frustrating, and often disheartening, we need to focus and celebrate the achievements that have been made. This includes those of planning. There are many different examples that address success in the abstract to the tangible, as well as differing scales and locations across the country. I think let's spotlight Johannesburg's Corridors of Freedom, which was launched in 2013, and it is a transformative triumph in South African urban planning. It was envisioned by Mayor Parks Tau as a means to erase apartheid spatial divides, and is in many ways a transit-orientated project which integrates the Ria Via bus rapid transport system along with housing and mixed-use economic nodes. And the aim is to reconnect marginalized townships with city centers. It not only reduces urban fragmentation, but boosts mobility and economic access for poorer communities. It also addresses things such as informality and infrastructure access. Many have called it planning which has shifted from exclusion to inclusion. Then community collaboration through partnerships such as Plan Act NGO was used, and this really harnessed local knowledge, and it aligns with Global South co-production models that empower a diverse set of residences. Also, the project strengthens urban-rural linkages. It supports equitable development under the Integrated Urban Development Framework. And really, its success stems from the Johannesburg Development Agency's coordination, the private sector's incentives like special development zones, and also efficient budgeting, which is critical. This initiative really proves that planning can bridge divides and create inclusive, vibrant spaces across South Africa's spectrum. So these images just provide some illustration for the corridors of freedom. You can see a depiction of the Ria Vaya BRT and its infrastructure, pedestrian linkages, mixed-use developments that connect Soweto Township to Johannesburg's economic core. The project integrates informal settlements with urban centres, and this enhances access for marginalised communities through participatory planning mechanisms. These images also reflect planning's role in reducing apartheid-era fragmentation and fosters inclusive urban transformation. And just briefly, this slide examines another recent example, not of success, but perhaps rather success in the making or promises of success, which is Cape Town's inner city housing initiative. The complexities of Cape Town's property market is very well known and described as extreme. There are acute affordable housing shortages and in the CBD, and housing stock is only accessible and affordable to a very small percentage of the city's population. The city is dotted with high-end developments, but behind these examples of advancement and progress are really stories of exclusion and gentrification. So government has tried to respond, and since 2010, the city's inclusionary housing policy has tried to drive mixed house developments in the central business district. And this is an attempt to counter apartheid-era spatial segregation through the delivery of affordable units for households, usually earning below 52,000 Rand monthly or less. However, progress has been lagging, but some key projects have been launched very recently in the second half of 2025, and it shows some promise with caution. There is, for example, Founders Garden, a project that illustrates the utilization of public-owned land. It is a 2 billion mixed-use high-rise development in the CBD's foreshore, and it will provide 1,476 social housing units, integrating residential and commercial spaces, and try to foster equitable access. It is a step in the right direction, but critique is that the portion of social housing within the project must be further maximized, and as always, delivery should not be delayed. There is also a second example, which is the Fruit and Veg site, which was approved in August of 2025. And this will add 237 social housing units, enhancing affordability through densification in the CBD. Housing activists are, however, concerned that the income bracket expectation is too high and that it would ultimately still exclude the most vulnerable in the city. As we've said, it is promising, and this shifts planning towards inclusion and resilience while also addressing historical inequities. Its success ultimately lies in urban regeneration, improved access to education, economic opportunities, and mixed income models through affordability, but challenges to persist. Community engagement ensures local needs shape these outcomes, offering scalable lessons for equitable urban development across South Africa's landscape. So just 2 or 3 images, recent images. You can see the Founders Garden, which is also referred to as the Artscape Precinct site project, and then also a illustration of what that might look like, and then also the site for the Fruit and Veg development in Cape Town. Right, coming towards the end, we can say that with surety, the future will come and manifest in a multitude of spaces, realities, and experiences. It will be favorable for some and less so for others. Planning continues to play its role in fostering positive spatial change, but must increase in relevance, importance, and proactivity. As we reflect on South Africa's spatial planning journey, from early colonial legacies to democratic triumphs, there is potential to be realized and also changes that still need to be made. This slide briefly charts a strategic way forward for the system. And in essence, more must be done and plans must be translated into action, supported by resources and also tangible outcomes. We will briefly go through them. Firstly, although a collective effort, there are many stakeholders and attention must be turned to the government. Planning is scaled and, as we've seen, undertaken at all three levels, yet greater intergovernmental coordination is critical and required in order to realize the values and objectives of SPLUMA. Second, the leveraging of technology and data is needed in this digital age. Digital planning tools must be developed and integrated into systems such as GIS, especially at a municipal level. These digital platforms will help with approvals, monitoring, and service delivery, and also help to reduce bureaucratic delays that plague many projects and thus development. Then, if we look at planners, the building of planner capacity is also very important. There must be an expansion in education and training and also continuous development. And this must be done to address professional shortages, but also strengthening the profession as a skilled workforce. Planners must become economically, socially, and ecologically literate. Then, as a fourth point, it is necessary to focus and support the local lens for enhanced public participation. The strengthening of community involvement is needed, and this can be done through the IDP and the SDF, and this is to foster inclusive, locally responsive planning. Then, the acceleration of orderly and prosperous land reform is needed, and the integration of informal and rural areas is critical. And something that has maybe not been mentioned, but is definitely on our minds, is the incorporation of strategies for climate resilience. These must be embedded in adaptation strategies, in spatial frameworks, and it is needed to safeguard sustainable development amid increasing environmental pressures. Then also economic equity in terms of economies is needed, but there must also be a focus on the social aspect of society. And finally, something such as the 2025 National Dialogue can be leveraged. The harnessing of the first National Convention's call for people-led vision to 2055 can really help to advance spatial justice and participatory governance, and ensures that planning serves all South Africans going into the future. And in conclusion, I really hope that this overview has created some greater understanding of the complex and unique system, which has had a great impact on South African society, its zeitgeist, its past, present, and ultimately its future. We acknowledge that the country remains a contested landscape, and planning has played its role in both positive and negative ways. Its impact on a myriad of scales touches both the intangible and the tangible. It is dynamic, this cannot be denied, and will continue to change both internally as well as external forces. And in doing this will shape the realities of South Africans as the future unfolds. Central to the planning system is the moral imperative to achieve spatial redress and transformation, and this is in order to balance and improve the quality of life for all South Africans. I'd like to end off and thank the audience, and for our international viewers, I hope that South Africa's story offers global lessons, and I'd like to end off with a thank you and say that I hope that our story inspires you going forward.